Hello there, people of the internet. So this is a question that I actually got from somebody I was talking to who is a viewer of the channel, but they're also a new firearms owner, and they got themselves a 9mm semi-automatic polymer frame handgun, just like the most standard stereotypical style of defensive handgun that anyone would go out to get. And they asked me, what is the best round to carry? He decided to go with 9mm just because of price point. I mean, 9mm is a good, powerful, potent round with modern projectiles and modern propellants. And it's definitely effective enough to do the job at reasonable ranges. You know, don't try shooting a 9mm out at like 500 yards or something like that. But just because of the price point and availability, he decided to go with 9mm. But he asked me, what is the best round for, you know, carrying with you for defensive purposes? And I was like, well, that's actually a very interesting topic. Let's go ahead and make a full video on it. I imagine he's probably going to watch this video. So, hey, if you know who you are, you know who I'm talking to. So I have a couple of different handguns out here to look at. So first thing I'm going to say is, I guess it depends on like what sort of firearm it is that you're wanting and what the purpose is that you're wanting it for. For example, if you're getting yourself a revolver, then maybe a 357 38 special would be a good way to go, if that is something that you can reliably use. Or if you get yourself a handgun, 9mm is an excellent way to go. But if you're a frail old lady and you can't pull the slide back out on a semi-automatic, then maybe a revolver would be a good way to go, and a 38 special would be a good way to go with that. Or if you are so frail that you can't handle 38 special, then I have seen revolvers in like 32 or 22 long rifle, and there's a lot of different options out there. But my first caveat is to say, pick the type of gun that you want and what it is that you're going to use it for. Now, base the type of gun you want and what you're going to use it for based around your own capabilities. For example, don't go out and get yourself a Desert Eagle if you're a 80-pound old lady that can't even rack the slide back on your standard 9mm. You know, a heavy Desert Eagle is probably not going to do you very good. But get whatever is also in your budget. Like, for example, if you're like me and you don't have a whole lot of money to spend, ignore everything that I'm doing out here. If you're like me without a lot of money to spend on firearms and ammunition, then getting yourself something that is available and readily available and very common and not all that expensive would probably be the best way to go. That said, hey, guess what? Things I'm doing out here are not free. If you want to support my work, links to Utreon and Patreon are in the description below. That will definitely help me make more content more often. But if you go with something like a 9mm or a common round like that, like a very, very common round, oftentimes you can find yourself good quality handguns and ammunition for not a whole lot of money. You want to get yourself defensive loads as opposed to like just standard ball full metal jackets. Full metal jackets, you deal with over penetration and they oftentimes just poke a hole in their target, versus defensive loads, which are designed to expand in their target and export all of their energy onto that target and stop the projectile inside of whatever the target is that you were just shooting at. This way you don't have to worry about the loss of energy from a round just poking a hole inside of a target and doing damage to whatever is behind it, and you don't have to worry about over penetration. Now, just because you can handle something better doesn't necessarily mean that you should. Like, for example, I can handle a 45 ACP just fine. I'm out here, you know, I've shot 45 ACP a ton on this channel. However, I would definitely be much more comfortable with rapid follow-up shots in a defensive situation with something like 9mm because it is a less recoiling round. The recoil is not as harsh. And as a result of the not as harsh recoil, I just personally, from my own experience, I know for a fact that if I am shooting quickly to stop a target, less recoil the round has, the better likelihood I'll be able to keep the fundamentals of good handgun mechanics like good handgun operation, and I'll be able to keep my front sight on target well enough to be able to put multiple shots on target, as opposed to 45 ACP. I've tried like fast shooting 45 ACP, and I've had my handgun, you know, jump around a bunch. So just because you can handle it doesn't necessarily mean that it's something you should handle in a defensive situation. My recommendation, get the most powerful round that you can handle within reason. And whenever I say handle within reason, I mean handle in a situation to where you have somebody actively trying to attack you and you can put multiple rounds on target very quickly. It also has to be something within your price point. Like, for example, 32 ACP is anemic and pretty damn easy to handle out of most handguns. However, 32 ACP can also be a little difficult to find in some places, and whenever you do find it, it is often significantly more expensive than 9mm. So although it is more anemic than 9mm, it is more expensive and more difficult to get your hands on. Whatever it is that you decide to get, make sure that you get training with it and you know how to actually use the firearm that you're going to be using. For example, this is not a 9mm, but this is something that I carry with me on a pretty regular basis. This is just a little Taurus Spectrum in 380. I don't rock anything special. I just got some hollow points in this. I've ran probably about, rough estimations, about 500 rounds of this particular ammunition through this specific handgun. So I know this handgun runs this ammunition very well. I don't think I've gotten a single malfunction through this stuff. And I've tested it with like fruits and coconuts and water jugs and, you know, all sorts of stuff. And I'm comfortable with the penetration that this particular 380 round gets from this length of barrel. And this particular handgun, despite being double action, is pretty accurate, and I can make shots regularly out to about 40 yards. So with something this size out at about 40 yards, that is adequate enough. Now, take note how this single stack 380 ACP is what I carry because of its size, as opposed to something like this right here. This is a lot smaller and lighter weight and skinnier and easier to carry than something like this right here. And if you're carrying something around for defensive purposes, you're going to be carrying it a lot more than you're going to be using it. So although this would be a much better option in a defensive situation, I carry this right here because this is good enough to get the job done, but it's also lightweight and small enough for me to be able to carry on a regular basis. Not only that, but because of its extremely low profile setting, there's a lot of times where I'm in situations where maybe I'm around somebody who doesn't like firearms, or maybe I'm in a situation where I don't want somebody to know that I'm concealed carrying. I'm not advocating for carrying illegally in illegal places, but there's places where, you know, morally speaking, I probably do not want people to know, hey, I have a gun on me. So I carry something nice and small to really emphasize the fact that it probably won't be seen on my person. That's something that you got to bear in mind if you're in a place that is not necessarily gun friendly. Just another caveat to keep in the back of your head when making your decisions. So, because this is a smaller firearm, I mean, there are firearms in about this size chambered in 9mm as well, if you want to get yourself something a little bit more potent. However, I find that this particular size firearm, very lightweight, very small, this particular size firearm with 380 does not recoil as much as the equivalent size firearm in 9mm, which makes sense. 9mm is a little bit more potent of a round. As a result, I'm able to get faster follow-up shots with something like this, as opposed to an equivalent size 9mm. And that is one of the reasons why I would rather carry a 9mm over a 45, just because of those faster follow-up shots. So, in this case, 380 over 9mm in something like this. If I was carrying a handgun of size like this right here, then I would probably carry something like 9mm as opposed to a 380. So I guess it all depends on your situation as well, and like I said, your monetary budget. 380 is not an expensive round, and I can get it pretty easily and pretty cheaply. It's not like as expensive as 32 ACP or something like that, but it is a little bit more expensive than, say, 9mm, for example. That being said, although it is more anemic and a little bit more expensive, just because of the nature of this size of handgun, this is why I carry this specific ammunition. So you do have to kind of play around with justification of what you're going to carry and why you're going to carry it. Now, if you are, like I said, somebody who can't handle the slide on something like this, then maybe a revolver would be a good way to go. And if you are weak like that, then maybe a 38 special revolver, that might be your thing that you lean towards, and there's nothing wrong with that if you simply cannot handle this right here, or maybe you just don't understand how these things work, then a revolver might be good for you. There's been multiple times where I've taken somebody out to the range and I try to get them to understand that the round inside of the magazine needs to be cycled and put into the chamber of your firearm. But there's some people that just cannot seem to comprehend this idea. They can't seem to fathom. I will literally put the mag in and show them the round being moved into the chamber, and they literally are just incapable of comprehending what's going on. So whenever I hand them the handgun, they put the magazine in and they think it's ready to go, and they pull the trigger and nothing happens. So with people that are just not quite able to comprehend what's going on, they still have a right to self-defense and, being able to protect themselves and their family. So maybe a revolver would be a way to go for them. So in a quick summary for this video here, my recommendation: get the most powerful round that you can comfortably use in a defensive situation, based off of your firearm type that you decide to go with. If you want to get yourself a full-size handgun like this Ruger P89 chambered in 9mm, by all means, go ahead and do that. With this being a full-size handgun, much heavier than, something like this right here. This right here is going to have significantly less recoil if it was firing an equivalent round. As a result, you could stand to have more power behind a bigger handgun because of that less recoil. You get faster follow-up shots because the gun absorbs more recoil than a lighter weight gun. That's just the way physics are. However, if you want to get yourself something lighter weight, then maybe getting yourself like a polymer frame, very lightweight, equivalent size handgun like this, chambered in, let's say, 10mm, probably not going to be the best option for somebody who is inexperienced with firearms. That can kick pretty roughly, and if you are not well adversed and experienced with fast follow-up shots, then maybe a 10mm lightweight handgun might not be the best for you. You could do what I did, and I just have a caveat of being powerful enough and light enough to be able to get the job done. I do have other options available to me if this right here does not work out. Like things that I can go to, this right here would be my primary, things that I could go to as a force multiplier in order to deal with whatever situation it is that I'm dealing with. But this should be able to take care of whatever situation I run into. Well, folks, thanks for watching. I do appreciate your time. You know what, just for funsies, let's go ahead and throw on these earmuffs. And I've been carrying around this mag right here for a couple of months. Let's go ahead and just run these rounds downrange. Didn't have my magazine seated all the way. Let's go ahead and just run these rounds downrange and just see how this old girl's working. It's been a little while since I've shot this thing. I'm gonna see if I can hit my bowling pin out there. So everybody says, yeah, I hit it. I saw it move. Let's send another round there. I don't know if I hit it that time. Let's go for the steel, see if I hit it there. Yep, I hit the steel, and I'm sending brass cases all over the place. Alright, so yeah, I mean, this handgun is definitely accurate, and it'll get the job done. It's not necessarily something that I'd want to bring into the end of the world, but I would use it. Oh, hey, look, and the slide locked open on an empty mag. So I'm glad to see that after several months of carrying, this was still up and functional. The ammunition was still usable. Anyway, like I was saying, thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description, bunch of links. Go check it out. I'll see y'all on the next video. I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.